What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for another week of building Coruscant and Lego. This week I need to start the final stretch of stairs that sits between the plateaus and the Galactic Senate building so I can see what everything's going to look like all together and the final height of that section so I know where the Galactic Senate building's going to sit. I'm also going to be showing you guys where exactly those brick built statues are going and doing a mini review on them. I also need to work on the entertainment complex and bank because both of those are starting to fall behind schedule. All things point towards a good update, so don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button and let's get started. My warm-up build for this week is the rest of the road where the Captain Fordo Easter egg is. Not much to add here, just the rest of the bricks and the crosswalk. I don't know if they actually had crosswalks in Coruscant, but I'm putting them in anyways to add a sense of familiarity to the MOC, which is the same reason why I added the streetlights. Even though this is a foreign planet and Star Wars city in a distant galaxy, I still want it to feel familiar and look like a city. I'm moving over to the bank next to finish building the wall. The sooner I get these done, the sooner I can add the roof. They're starting to get so tall and long that this wall is bowing outward in the middle, so I hope once I get the roof on, it'll straighten everything out. I also need to pick up the pace with the bank. I have about 2 months left on the MOC and it's barely halfway done. I've been putting it off mostly because I needed to buy a ton of light bluish gray and dark bluish gray brick to cover up the walls, which is expensive and just not really a super sexy or exciting part of the build. But the time for procrastinating is over. I'm in the final stretch. We once again find ourselves watching a plateau come together, but this time it's final. I'm working on the back end where the steps will overlap on top of it, which should look pretty cool once it's all done. I didn't realize how many steps I'm going to actually need to build, but now that I can better see where everything's going to go, the weight of how many steps are needed is starting to sink in. And I'm really glad I added the plateaus in the tunnel because I think just a solid wall of steps would have looked kind of boring and very pyramid-ish, so these break up the monotony of that build and add some extra places for minifigures and to tell other stories and add cool details.
So I've noticed something kind of funny. Ever since flipping the MOC around and adding this extra table, this MOC feels kind of small to me. Like the other day, I think it was last night, I was looking, I was like, man, this thing's kind of small. I'd like to do like a really big one. And then I realized this MOC is huge. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is the biggest MOC I've ever done. But I think because that tall section is now tucked in the corner and I have all this open space, it just feels smaller, because I'm guessing if anybody else were to come in this room and look at this, they wouldn't consider it small. Anyways, just a weird little thing that happened. The road is looking real good. It matches that other side, except for, no battle damage. There is one section I'm going to have to fix. I forgot I had this corner of the sidewalk broken, so I'm going to have a little chunk broken as well right there, but other than that it is ready to go. And I still have a bunch of dark bluish gray brick left over, which is good because I can keep working on the rest of the road. I finished the bank wall as well. You can see it looks really nice, very professional, very bank-esque, I guess. The only thing I don't like is right here in the corner you can see the light bluish gray pillar and the dark bluish gray inside kind of separate right here, just because this wall's so tall. It's being pushed and pulled in different directions, and the only place that these two sides are connected is at the top right here and the bottom. So you have this big gap in the middle that allows it to bulge. It's not a huge deal. You can see actually if you look at it from this angle, you can't really notice it. So you kind of have to be in here to see that. So I'm just banking on the fact that it'll kind of be hidden in, the rest of the MOC when it's all finished. This side is almost all done. All I need to do is tile off this inside here. That's actually why I haven't put these teller stands back, is because it'll be easier for me to get in here and tile. Unfortunately, I'm going to be using dark bluish gray tile, which why it isn't done, because like I've said in previous videos, that stuff is just really hard to find for some reason. So once I get that in, I can add in these glass panes to the windows. And the last thing I did, the mighty plateaus in their final form, hopefully. So these statues, I built them last week, but I saved this week to show you guys how they look in the MOC. You can see just absolutely gorgeous. Matt, the Brickwiz, and his friends did an incredible job designing these. The only thing I would say about them is there are a couple of pieces that are hard to find. The first is this little bent arm that has the hands in different directions. This one's got a vertical grip, whereas this one's a horizontal grip. These are surprisingly hard to find. I didn't really have any in my collection. I've only been able to scrape up a couple off of Bricklink. And then the other piece, as you guys already know, is this bottom triangle piece I was talking about earlier, how hard they were to find. Luckily, they were on the online Pick-a-Brick wall, so I have all of those coming that I need, so I just have to hunt down the arms. I did try the option of the straight joint arm with the vertical and horizontal grip, but you can see it just doesn't doesn't look as good. The statue has to hold the spear directly out in front of it, and these ones just kind of tucked down towards the body a little bit more, look a little bit more like they're in repose and just a little bit more realistic. And these face pieces right here are kind of hard to find as well, but you know, that's the price you pay with top-notch complex statues. You're going to be using pieces that are hard to find. As for where they're going to be, you know, this is the general layout. There isn't really anything specific I had in mind other than just having enough space for a walkway in between, and I kind of wanted them around the edges of the plateau. And the only thing I really need to account for now is the steps, because like I said in the time lapse, they're going to overlap onto this plateau and continue upwards. So basically from here on up to right here, this whole way is going to be steps. And I want to, you know, I don't want these to be right at the base of the steps. And I'm trying to figure out where I want the steps to start overlapping because initially the obvious choice was this step right here, right? This is the first one that's above the plateau, but you can see if I run the steps across like this, they're 2 plates tall, just like I need them to be, but this isn't the final height of the plateau. There's going to be one more layer of tile. So that means this first step will be off from the rest of the steps. That may not seem like a big deal, but in the real world, when building or designing stairs, you don't want to make any of your steps a different height because our brains and our bodies, you know, adapt to a set of stairs. It's almost like you have a built-in set of calipers, you know, that allow you to pick up your feet just high enough. So if you have one step that's off from the others, it'll mess everything up, and you know, you'll see people tripping and falling. I know this is a really nitpicky small thing, but that's something I'm thinking about just because, you know, I want this thing to be realistic, and I don't want to have one step be off. But I think I might just have this final step be a little bit shorter than the rest of them, which I think might not be as big of a deal as if, you know, this step that's off was in like the middle of the set of stairs. That's at the very end, and it's when you're stepping down onto the floor, so your body's going to be preparing for a difference in terrain regardless. So actually, now that I think about it, it might not be that big of a deal. Plus, if I have this step be the first one that overlaps onto the plateau, it will work out perfectly spacing wise because there will be 3 studs between the steps and the first statue, 3 studs between the last statue and the edge of the plateau, and then 3 studs between the back of all the statues and the side of the plateau on both sides. So it'll be perfectly symmetrical. Next thing I'm going to work on is getting those steps to overlap here, and then I'm also going to need to start working on this tunnel, making it longer because I can't just have a big gap right here. So this tunnel needs to run back until it planes into the top of the steps, and then I'm going to have those run over the top as well. So I'm going to build a little chunk about this big. I don't need to build any more of the actual tunnel, so it'll just be like a facade. There's no point in making it longer because it's a dead end anyways. Before I get to do more of the fun stuff in the Senate section, I need to go back and work on the entertainment complex. The bank in this area have been put on the back burner as I've been establishing the Senate section, but now that that's done, I need to make sure these 2 sections don't fall behind. I have a lot of bricks, so I can finish the wall that holds up the 2nd story walkway. It will also have some TVs and an Arabesh sign just like the other side. Last week, a couple of people pointed out I could use regular clips instead of yellow hands, which I was using for the bread sign, which makes sense considering a hand can hold the same exact things as a clip. So I swapped in a clip brick to hold the bread. Thanks to the people who pointed that out. Like I said, the tunnel isn't going to continue any deeper, just the exterior wall until it's covered up by the stairs. Once this is done, I can start the roof of the tunnel, and I already know there's at least one big issue waiting for me with that. Now it's time to build the stairs above the plateau. This final stretch of stairs will lead right up to the Senate building, and this stairway is getting super tall. Too tall, in fact. I don't think the Senate building needs to be 18 plus bricks up in the air, so I'm going to try shrinking the height of the stairs by possibly making some of the steps bigger, like 4 studs wide instead of 2 studs wide, so they cover the same amount of ground but don't rise up as high into the air. This was good. I got a lot of work done in the entertainment complex. I'm now ready to put this 2nd story floor on. It's just going to run all the way across here. I think I'm going to put this in first before I put the stairs, just so I can make sure they come up in the right spot. And then there's just going to be a wall back here. The bread sign looks much better. I'm really glad someone pointed that out. Although I think I'm going to swap out this clip for a vertical one so the bread can sit this direction instead. All right, on to the main attraction. Look at these steps. This section is going to be an absolute monster. I did not realize how big it was going to end up being. So you can see I started the overlap here with these steps running up above the plateau. Everything is now looking great with these statues and the stairs. On to the problems, because this wouldn't be a Lego mock update without issues. So I did not realize how tall this was going to end up being. This is the final height that this section would be. So, the Senate building was going to be right up here on top. And I don't want it to be this tall. It's going to eat up a ton of bricks, and I just don't think it's necessary for it to be this high. So what I'm thinking about doing is actually cutting off these last 4 steps, and then I'm going to build a chunk of this because, this whole section with the Senate building is going to be modular and come apart. So I think I'm just going to build a chunk of plate and tile. It's about this long, and it's going to slide over the top here. So this will all be flat, and it'll slide in place. And so once the two are connected, it'll look like there will be a little bit more stairs, or, it'll go up onto the Senate section or whatever I do there. But it's not going to be as tall. It's probably only going to be to about right here. And another thing I'm toying with is changing the run of the stairs. So down here, they're all 2 studs wide. But I was thinking about either having a landing right here or bigger steps that are 4 studs wide that will go a further distance without going as high, if that makes sense. So I won't have as many steps. You can see right here how many fewer steps it's going to be and how much shorter it is in the same amount of time with 4 steps or 2 steps. And I figured this is something you commonly see in the big, powerful government buildings I've been modeling this after, which it kind of makes sense from a logistical standpoint. You don't want to have a mountain of steps to, wear people out. You want to have a nice little section in between where there's some flat ground so they can regain their breath before they take on this last ascent. I don't know, that might be confusing and muddled to you guys, but this is kind of new territory for me, so I'm just spitballing here and trying out new ideas. I am ending this update pretty stressed. I did not realize how tall this was going to end up being or how big it was, because these steps are going to run all the way across the length of this. And that's going to be a lot of parts and a lot of money. And I only have a couple of months left to finish this mock. So I'm really starting to realize it's time to pick up the pace.
Ooh, baby. This week was a wake-up call. I finished the last kind of talking walkthrough section of this and just had to sit down, and as the fact of how much I still had to do really sunk in, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this mock in the time frame I want going at this current pace, which means it's the 4th quarter and Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's time to put it all out on the court and really just go hard. I had already ordered this month's allotment of parts, but then I sat back down and was like, I need more. I need more stuff, because this next week and the week after, I want to just be insane update weeks. Just getting a huge bulk of the building out of the way. And, I get it done in little bits here and there, but I want to just knock out most of the steps, finish the entertainment complex, get the roof on the bank within the next 2 weeks. That way, I can set myself up to spend the rest of the time with the main focus being the Galactic Senate building. And the good news for that, I've already started to plan it, and I think I've got an idea of how I'm going to get that round shape. All that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this update. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about everything down below in the comments, and I will catch you next time. But until then, happy building.